Cloakers, also known as lurkers in shadows and chasm rays, resemble common black cloaks with rows of black eye spots running down their backs like buttons. Two ivory-colored claws on the upper edge of the cloaker's form are easily mistaken for bone clasps. The white underside of a cloak bears a horrific horned face composed of two glowing red eyes and a ravenous maw. A whip-like tail completes its monstrous form. Cloakers fly with blinding speed, engulfing prey within their folds. While devouring victims, cloakers defend themselves with their tails. In addition, they emit subsonic moans with varying effects that induce unease, fear, nausea, weakness, or paralyzation. Cloakers also manipulate shadows to obscure opponents' visions or produce precise images. Cloakers' thought process are utterly alien to most other life forms. As such, only mages who devote long hours to training their minds in the arcane discipline can understand them. A rare elite form of cloaker, known as a cloaker lord, appears as a large black cloak, such as an ogre or a giant might wear. Cloaker lords' powers and abilities correspond to those of normal cloakers, but with significant enhancements. Otherwise, they are physically identical to their lesser kin. Cloakers have lived in the Underdark since the earliest recorded dwarf explorations. Their origins are lost in the midst of history. Many scholars have noted the close physical resemblance of cloakers to other flying greys. Others suggest a kinship between cloakers and bats, pointing to sinisters in particular. A closer study reveals that while some ancestral kinship may exist between cloakers and other races, chasm rays are decidedly alien. A few sages go so far as to speculate that cloakers are descendants of an ancient race of proto-rays or proto-bats. Proto-rays who made their way into the demi-plane of shadow for a time before returning to the Underdark. All agree that cloakers have long resided in the realms below. Cloaker lords seem to be relatively recent occurrence, arising within the past few centuries. An explanation of their manifestations still eludes scholars. Possibly cloaker lords have existed for as long as a common cloaker, but remain hidden for millennia because making their existence known, if true, that begs the question of why cloaker lords have been chosen to appear now within recorded history, and why no evidence of cloaker civilization dates back more than a few centuries. Cloakers are found individually in a small group throughout the lower and middle Underdark. They establish cities only when drawn together by one or more cloaker lords. Cloaker lords hold a natural domination effect over common cloakers, drawing normally solitary cloakers together into raiding bands, small communities, and even cities. If more than one cloaker lord is present, then the rulers draw together periodically to form a conclave of shadows, a body with no established leader that requires unanimity on any decision. When a conclave of shadows is convened, the assembled representatives form a ring, or in rare cases a sphere, by positioning themselves at different orientations and grasping each other with their claws. Such formations then undergo a temporary transformation, not yet understood, that results in a ring or sphere of living shadow stuff and an apparent merging of minds. When the cloaker lords disengage, they resume their original individual forms and disperse to carry out the conclave's decision. Although cloakers and cloaker lords historically do not exhibit spellcasting powers, their ties to the demi-plane of shadow are strong and apparently growing. As such, other races have begun to report that a few cloaker lords seem to be developing the ability to cast wizard spells from the school of shadow as spell-like effects. Others report that cloakers seem to travel through physical obstacles, lending credence to the suggestion that they can briefly shift into the demi-plane of shadows and emerge elsewhere. Finally, the increasing frequency of gloomwings, shadelings, tenebros worms, and umbrals, shadow animals akin to animantals, near cloaker enclaves suggest that the cloakers summon such creatures to the prime material plane, possibly even controlling them. Unlike nearly all other sentient races of the Underdark, cloakers do not appear to venerate any particular deity. Other races, with the notable exception of Darrow, refer to individual cloakers as Dinkarazan's mantle, a fanciful linking of the lost, mad demi-power of the Darrow to the alien thought process of the cloakers. Cloaker cities are built into the roofs of great subterranean caverns or on the sides of steep underdark chasms. Favored locations include places with massive stalactites and towering chasm walls, inaccessible to those without flight or levitation. While cloakers do not dominate any one region of the deep earth, their isolated enclaves are rarely contested. Such strongholds are nearly impregnable to other races. If not for the tendencies of cloakers to hunt other nearby races, it would be simple enough to share such prized living spaces with those who prefer the more accessible cavern floors. More than one explorer has entered a large cave and mistaken the hordes of dark flying creatures for bats, only to realize with horror that he or she has misjudged the scale of the subterranean cavern and that hundreds of cloakers are flittering overhead. Whether hewn into a rock face or a dangling stalactite, cloaker cities are recognizable for the countless apertures through which they enter and leave. Within a cloaker enclave, most passages are extremely high and narrow, rarely more than a few inches wide. Cloakers navigate such passageways by flattening their bodies and inching along with their claws. Chambers resemble hemispheres with smooth, rounded ceilings and wildly uneven floors with sharp spikes and crevices everywhere. The floors serve as both alien tapestries for the cloakers to contemplate as well as defensive mechanisms, preventing flightless races from establishing solid footing. While cloakers are capable of mining, agriculture, and trading, they would rather enslave other races to do these jobs for them. Some cloaker communities keep captive herds of deep growth penned in a cavern floor below their communities. Such examples of animal husbandry are exceptional, however. Sages suggest this fact indicates that cloaker society incorporates the hunt into societal ritual. Aside from an eerie, uninhabited region, the most obvious signal of a large community of cloakers is the warding song, a great barrier of sound created by a cloaker choir. The cacophony created by hundreds of cloakers emitting subsonic moans of increasingly intensity can echo through the Underdark for miles, creating panic and uncomprehending terror in communities far away with a slight shift of a breeze or an echo. Warding songs start and stop without any discernible pattern and thus are impossible to predict. While not truly evil, cloakers view all other races as prey. A few cloaker realms have allied themselves with other races, such as the Ixen, though again, this is a rare exception. Other flying rays, including lurkers, mantry, and trappers, are treated as favored servitors. Some creatures, such as deep spawn and floaters, are forced into servitude by the powers of the cloaker lord's moans. Deep spawn serve as means to renew food stocks. Floaters who resemble long, puffed-up purple worms with tiny shimmering wings and rows on either side are enormous gas bags ranging from 20 to 100 yards long and up to 20 yards in diameter, who serve as beasts of burden.